My pen stopped halfway across a little square on the DMV form. I could feel my hand hovering there, like the answer was going to change if I stared long enough. Then I read the question again, and the first word out of my mouth was not spiritual, not elegant, and not quiet.
Well, his body woke up with a list of complaints. His lungs said no and his heart said wait. He's got pills in the kitchen and plans on the shelf, but he's still showing up as a stubborn old self. It's a body rebels where the truth gets told about medical mysteries and growing old, with a little dark humor and a whole lot of grit. When his body throws a tantrum, he rolls with it. He's not a doctor, these stories are his, with every hard lesson and harder twist. His voice may get tired, so the AI talks to you. But for medical advice, talk to the doctor, caring for you.
Hello, and welcome to A Body Rebels, a chronic illness podcast. I'm Tate. Today I'm talking about the day a simple driver's license renewal turned into a panic over honesty, medication, and the fear of losing the right to drive. I love to drive. I don't mean I only love it on empty country roads with perfect weather and no one in front of me going 12 miles under the speed limit. I mean, I love driving even when it's mildly annoying. Traffic doesn't ruin it for me. I don't enjoy traffic as a concept. I haven't lost all reason, but I can usually settle into it. I put on an audiobook, adjust the air, and the car becomes a little moving room where nobody is asking me to walk too far, stand too long, or explain my medical history. Driving has always meant freedom to me, but not the dramatic movie version of freedom. It's groceries, appointments, errands, dogs, oxygen logistics, work, family. The ability to say, I can get there, without turning the whole thing into a group project. When you live with chronic illness, independence often hides inside ordinary objects. Keys in your pocket, a valid license, a car that starts, a plan that doesn't require asking someone else to take you. I've lived with sarcoidosis for 20 years, and after cardiac sarcoidosis became part of my life, I had an AICD implanted. That put one quiet worry in the back of my mind. Would this ever affect my ability to drive? The AICD was there to protect me. I knew that. It was a safety device inside my chest, installed because my heart had already shown it could get theatrical without clearing the schedule first. I was grateful for it. I was also aware that once something becomes part of your medical record, you start wondering where else it might show up. Doctor's office, yes. Pharmacy, fine. Airport security, probably. But the DMV? Nobody wants the DMV involved in their heart. For years, renewing my license had been simple. I'd done it by mail, then online. A few clicks, a few boxes, maybe a new photo if the state felt I needed humbling. Done. Then I got a renewal that required an eye exam. I could have gone somewhere authorized like a pharmacy, taken the vision test, and renewed online. But the DMV near me is usually pretty empty. I know that sounds fictional. An empty DMV sounds like a bedtime story for adults who have suffered. But I'd been there before and seen open chairs. So I went. I figured I'd take the eye test, fill out the form, and leave with that smug little feeling you get when a government errand doesn't steal your entire afternoon. I got the form. Name, address, basic information. Tiny boxes clearly designed by someone who has never met an adult hand. And I turned the page. And there it was. Have you had or are you currently receiving treatment or taking medication for any condition which causes unconsciousness or unawareness, such as heart ailment? My pen stopped. My brain stopped. My mouth did not. I said, "Shit!" out loud, not a private little whisper, not a dignified mutter into my sleeve. DMV volume. The people near me looked up from their forms. That's how I knew I'd broken the sacred DMV silence. That silence is made of old carpet, irritation, fluorescent lights, and people trying to remember information they know perfectly well until a form asks for it. I looked back at the question. Heart ailment, medication, unconsciousness, unawareness. I didn't like those words standing together. My first instinct was to decide the question was meant for someone else. Surely they meant seizures. Surely they meant fainting. Surely they meant people who black out while making toast and wake up holding a burnt bagel. I wasn't blacking out. My medication didn't cause unconsciousness. Did it? It caused dizziness sometimes. Lightheadedness, yes. The occasional moment where standing up too fast became a negotiation between me, the wall, and gravity. But unconsciousness sounded dramatic. Then the responsible part of me, which has dreadful timing, suggested I look up the side effects right there. So I stood in the DMV with my phone in one hand and the form in the other, searching medication side effects like a man trying to prove his own paperwork wrong. Metoprolol. Dizziness. Unconsciousness. I stared at the screen. Then I said it again. Shit. Nobody looked up the second time. By then, I think the room had accepted me as the man with the form and the limited vocabulary. Now I had a problem. Did I check yes, or did I check no? Checking no would have been easy, quick, smooth. Nobody at the counter was going to ask me to produce my cardiology records, my medication list, and a statement from my left ventricle. I could check no, finish the renewal, and go home. But I really dislike lying on official forms. I'm not saying that from some glowing moral pedestal. I've told tiny social lies. I've said, I'm almost there, while still looking for my keys. I've said, that haircut looks fine, when the hair had clearly lost a private argument with scissors. I've said, I'll just have one cookie, which is less a promise and more a decorative sentence. Official forms feel different. Medical questions feel different. Put them together, and my stomach starts warning me before I've even made the choice. I didn't want to tell the DMV about my heart. I didn't want my license renewal to become a medical review. I didn't want someone behind a counter quietly sliding me into the category of impaired driver. I emailed my cardiologist from the DMV. He knew my history. He knew about the AICD. He knew why I was taking the medication. He also knew I drove. I hoped he would write back and say, don't worry about it. Check no. Not because I knew that was right. Because I wanted a medical adult to give me permission to stop panicking in public. I explained the form. I explained the question. I asked what I should do. Then I folded the paper and left. When I got home, I told my wife what happened. I handed her the form like it was evidence. She looked at it for about 6 seconds and said, did you see the part underneath the question? That is never a comforting sentence. She pointed. Under the yes box in fine print, it said that if I checked yes, my doctor had to complete another form. I said it again. Shit. By then, the word had become less of a swear and more of a legal position. Now, it wasn't only a checkbox. It was another form, a doctor form, a DMV form attached to the first DMV form, like paperwork had reproduced while I was driving home. I started thinking about checking no again. I wish I could make that sound complicated and noble, but it was mostly fear. I didn't want the state to have more information about my medical life than necessary. I didn't want to be punished for doing the responsible thing. I didn't want the device inside my chest, the thing meant to protect me, to become the reason someone decided I couldn't be trusted behind a wheel. So I looked up what could happen if I answered no, and later it became an issue. That was not calming. The message was clear enough. If I said no, and later it was discovered that I was taking medication connected to the question, especially if something happened on the road, the consequences could be serious. Fines. License trouble. The kind of problem that starts with a checkbox and ends with a folder full of paperwork. I put the phone down. I took off my coat. I plugged in my phone. Then my cardiologist replied. His answer was not the answer I wanted, which felt personally inconsiderate, considering how clearly I had wanted the easier option. He said I had to check yes. He said there was a form. He had already filled it out and his nurse was mailing it to me. All I had to do was fill in my information and submit it to the DMV. All I had to do is a dangerous phrase. People say it right before describing the exact task you've been trying not to do for 3 hours. All I had to do was declare the medical issue, attach the doctor's form, and hope the system understood the difference between being medically managed and being unsafe. That was the part that scared me. I wasn't trying to hide reckless behavior. I wasn't driving through blackouts. I wasn't pretending my body had never caused trouble. I was trying to keep a piece of independence while telling the truth about the body I live in. Chronic illness asks for disclosure again and again. At intake desks, at pharmacies, at specialist offices, on insurance forms, sometimes to family, sometimes to strangers who didn't earn the information but still get to ask for it. You think you're just giving facts, diagnosis, medication, device, side effect. Then someone pauses for half a second, and you can feel the recalculation. Are you okay? Are you fragile? Are you at risk? Can you still do this? Driving is tied directly to that last question. Can you still do this? I can still drive. I drive carefully. I pay attention. I know my limits. I don't play games with fatigue, dizziness, or warning signs. If my body tells me to stay home, I stay home and resent it privately, like a mature adult with very immature facial expressions. But the fear at the DMV wasn't only about my actual ability. It was about being reduced to a category. Heart patient. Medication risk. Device implanted. Potential problem. I understand why forms need boxes. Systems need categories. Nobody at the DMV has time to read a memoir at window 4. Still, it's uncomfortable when your life is more complicated than the choices offered. I went back with the form. I checked yes. I submitted what I needed to submit, but I waited. That waiting had its own texture. It wasn't full panic. It was a low hum in the background, like standing beside a closed door and hoping the people on the other side were being reasonable. A car means I can manage appointments. I can get groceries. I can take the dogs where they need to go. I can get myself somewhere without turning every errand into a negotiation. A car also lets me feel like myself. That may sound small to someone who has never wondered whether a form could change their independence. It didn't feel small to me. That day, I didn't want to be brave. I didn't want paperwork. I wanted to renew my license, pass the eye exam, leave the building, and go home with one less errand on my list. Instead, a single square on a form made me picture my keys being taken away. I checked yes because my cardiologist told me to. I checked yes because pretending the question didn't apply wouldn't make my medical history disappear. I checked yes because I had to live with myself after I left that building. But I hated it. I hated that my body followed me into the DMV. I hated that a heart medication turned a license renewal into a risk calculation. I hated that doing the right thing felt like opening a door I wanted to keep closed. And I still loved driving. Those feelings sat next to each other, the keys in my hand and the form on the counter. Freedom can feel very solid until a checkbox reminds you how conditional it can become. I'm Tate, and this is A Body Rebels, a chronic illness podcast. Thanks for being here. You're welcome to visit abodyrebels.com, where you can leave a review, send me a message, or leave a voicemail for the show. Please know I'm not able to respond to solicitations, sales offers, guest pitches, or promotional outreach. And if you'd like to do something tangible to help people living with sarcoidosis, please consider making a donation to the Foundation for Sarcoidosis Research, or FSR, at stopsarcoidosis.org. I'll also put a link in the show notes.
He's got doctors and blood work and pills by the